So 2016 is finally over, and now it's time to count all the books that were my favorites for the year. Because, even though 2016 was a really sucky year for me, and apparently for the world, I read some pretty good books still, so that's always good. Most of these books, like most of these clips, are already from like 12 days ago or something. I'd already started filming it, and then I realized that I wasn't done reading books for the year, so yeah. So I kind of have to add a few more clips, but I really don't feel like taking all those books off the shelf again to show my favorites. So I'm just going to be changing clothes and having shorter hair, well, having longer hair in the other clips. Also, I wanted to add a book, Three Dark Crowns by Kinder Blake. This was an amazing book, probably one of the best reads I read all year, and it was one of my last ones, so yeah, that was really good. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on to the video. I do not have all the physical copies of the books because some of them are back in my dorm in Natchitoches, and I am home for the holidays, as you can probably tell by the, bookshelf over there in my room. Yeah. So I don't have all the books, but I can say the names and the author, and the only two books that I don't have are pretty popular books, so I'm sure y'all probably already know what they are. The first one is The Martian by Andy Weir. I loved seeing the movie after reading the book, which was so great, and this book was just so hilarious. Why is there a bookmark still in here? Oh look, I found a bookmark. Alright, so I'm just gonna put that down there. Kind of need one for another book. But anyway, I loved this book so much. It is hilarious. It's not really probable or possible how he makes life on Mars, but it is still great to read and think about and stuff, and it was just a really good book, and that's all I'm gonna say. I'm pretty sure I have a review up for this, being as it is one of my favorite books of the year, so if I don't, I'm sorry. This year I was able to read a lot of series that I'd been wanting to read for a while, including the Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare. This is the spin-off of her Shadowhunter Academy, of her Mortal Instruments series. This takes place before that, and I loved this series so much. It is a complete trilogy. I loved all of the books. I can't really choose a favorite, although the last one was pretty great because, when it ends, it's always great how it ends, usually. Anyway, no, but this series was amazing. I highly recommend it if you haven't read it already, but being as I am one of the last ones to read it, most likely you already have, so, I really loved the characters in this, though. I loved the storyline. I loved the time period a lot more than the Mortal Instruments. I'm just a sucker for like the late 1700s and early 1800s. I love those time periods, and they are just great. And yeah, and magic is involved, so that's always a plus. The other trilogy that I was really excited that I finally got to read this year was Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. As you all know, the movie came out this year for the first one. I actually just watched it last night for the first time ever, and I must say, Tim Burton did a really, really great job with it. I had some problems, but for the most part, the movie was great. The books are amazing as well. I loved them so much. I love the storyline. I love how unique it is. Ransom Riggs truly does a great job when it comes to being different from other writers, and the plots and just everything. It was great. Up next is the first contemporary that I loved to read this year, which is The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson. This is the first and only Morgan Matson book I read, although I've heard so many good things about her. This came out this year, and I read this with the Bibliothon booktube channel for this summer. This was one of the books that had to be read, and I loved every second of it. It is a pretty big book for a contemporary, but it was told so good. I couldn't see it getting shortened at all. Like, it was just so good. I'm pretty sure I have a review for this as well. Up next is another contemporary that I loved this year, which is I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. This is a contemporary that was pretty popular. I think it came out either last year or the year before. A lot of booktubers loved it, and I had yet to read it, and finally I was able to read this beautiful paperback edition with its gorgeous rainbow stuff. It destroyed my heart, but I loved it so much. I read this for the booktubeathon for this summer, and I definitely know that there is a review up for this one. Definitely. I remember making it. So yeah, go check that out and you'll see more thoughts on it. The next book that I got to read this year was one that I was very much anticipating, and when it finally came out, I just didn't get to reading it, and then finally, right before college, I want to say, I was able to read it, and I was so happy. I'm pretty sure I read it for the booktubeathon. Not sure if I did or didn't though, and that is Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. Sarah J. Maas is one of my favorite authors ever. This is the 4th installment to her Throne of Glass series, which is about an assassin, and there's just so much badassery, and there's magic, and it's just a wonderful high fantasy read. If you have not read this yet, I don't know what you're doing with yourself, especially if you are a sucker for high fantasy as much as I am, and this book was no exception to my love for her Throne of Glass books. I loved it so much. Another contemporary that I've been wanting to read for a while that came out a few years back, I'm not really sure when, let's say, no, 2015. Okay, so it came out last year. That's All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. This is another contemporary that a lot of booktubers were raving about last year, and I hadn't gotten to it until this year, but I read it for the booktubeathon and I absolutely loved it. I'm pretty sure I have a review up for this as well. I'm not sure, but I think I might. And yeah, it was just so good. Two books that I almost left out because I don't have the physical copies of are This Savage Song and A Court of Thorns and Roses by another Sarah J. Maas book. Court of Thorns and Roses, a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I loved it so much. I finally got to read it this year. Not too long ago, actually. It was one of the only books that I read while at college for this semester. And then This Savage Song came out this year. It was a book that I got in an Owl Crate subscription box, and I loved it so much. I loved the storyline, the uniqueness of with the plot and the characters. It was really great. There wasn't really a romance per se, but I think in the next books to come there will be one, and I'm very excited for the next book to come out because I need some answers to some of the questions that appeared at the end of the book. But yeah, those two were really great. I'm sorry I can't show you any physical copy of them, but yeah, those were also two of my favorite books for this year. Another book was one that I just finished reading, I want to say last week, and that is Stealing Snow by Danielle Page. This is a retelling of the Snow Queen, and by the Snow Queen I mean the actual Snow Queen, not Elsa from Frozen. This story of the Snow Queen was so amazing. I'm gonna have to do a review for this soon. I'm sorry I don't have the book jacket though. Book jacket is currently on my bookshelf back at the dorm because, you know, I didn't want to ruin it while traveling back to and from there. So, because I will bring this book back with me when I go back because it was just so good. And then the final book was a book that I had been wanting to read for so long. I put it in my TBR for so many things, and I finally was able to read it, and I'm so happy because that is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. The movie is one of my favorite movies of all time, but the book is just, it goes into so much more detail. It makes your heart just like break so much more than the movie, and it was just an amazing read. I highly, highly recommend this book. It is one of my all-time favorite books now, and the uniqueness of how this story is told is amazing because the narrator is death, like literally death, and it just astounds me how Marcus Zusak was able to like create that sort of character, and yeah, like his version of death, and it was so good, so good. Of course I had to listen to the audiobook because there is a lot of German words. There are a lot of German words in here that are very hard to pronounce, so listening to the audiobook helped with that, but I was still like completely immersed into the story the entire time, and it was so good. That was that, and thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time in the year 2017, unless, you know, I make another video before this, but yeah. All right.